Hello and welcome to Following Truth Bible Bites on YouTube. I'm your host, LJ. The title of this episode is Who was Cain's wife? Where did Cain get his wife from? A common argument presented against the Bible is that the Bible says that Adam and Eve had two sons, Cain and Abel. Cain killed Abel and was banished by God and went to live in the land of Nod. Genesis 4:16. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. In the very next verse, we are told that Cain knew his wife, and they had a child together, Enoch, not to be confused with the Enoch that God took away. Genesis 4:17. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch. And he builded a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. So Cain's wife. If Adam and Eve had two sons, who was Cain's wife? And where did she come from? This has also been used to put forth and used by those that proclaim a pre-Adamite race of people. The pre-Adamite race is not biblical. So what is the answer? It's actually quite a lot simpler than people try to make it seem. The Bible never actually states that at the time of Cain and Abel, there were only four people on earth. Only these four people had been mentioned, but that does not mean that Adam and Eve didn't have other children during the time that Cain and Abel were growing up. We do not know how old Cain and Abel were when Cain killed Abel. The Bible never gives these ages. What we do know is that at the time that Cain killed Abel, both were at an age that they were capable of doing the jobs that they did. Abel was a shepherd and Cain was a farmer. Genesis 4:2. And she again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. We know that Cain eventually killed Abel, Genesis 4:8. And Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. We are told that in the process of time, the two offerings were made to the Lord by Cain and Abel, Genesis 4:3. And in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought forth the fruit of the ground, an offering unto the Lord. And Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering. But there is no indication of how much time had passed between the births and the offerings, and then the ultimate death of Abel. What we do know is that Seth, who replaced Abel as the seed, was born when Adam was 130 years old. Genesis 5:4. And the days of Adam after he had begotten Seth were 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters. And all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. Now, we can only assume that this means Adam was 130 years old from the time he was created, as he was not born and he was not created as a baby. Adam lived until he was 930 years old. So that's 800 years after the birth of Seth. So from the birth of Adam until Seth, there was a 130-year period where the preceding story unfolded. There was ample time for Adam and Eve to have had other children before Seth. The Bible does not mention every person by name that is part of the story. The Bible never gives us the names of the wives of the sons of Noah, for instance, who were saved on the ark. They were included in the narrative, but they are not even named. And obviously, the Bible doesn't mention every person that has lived. We only get the names of the people that are important to the story or in that particular part of the story. But even if if they did not have any other children until Seth, we do not know. We do know that Adam had other children. Genesis 5:4 very clearly states these children are not mentioned but named. But even if these children were not born until after Seth, Adam lived 800 years after Seth's birth. That's a lot of time to reproduce. There is no way of knowing, because the Bible does not say, how long it took Cain to get to the land of Nod. And we do not know exactly how long after Cain killed Abel that he was banished. Now, the Bible says that this is where he knew his wife. The important thing to note is the text doesn't actually say that this is where his wife was from, that she was from Nod. It only states that he knew his wife there. And to know is the Bible a euphemism for to have sex with, and they reproduced. He could have gotten his wife from anywhere, including from the land that he was already living in until he left Nod. Neither does it say how long it took to find his wife, or when his first child was born. These details are just not given. However, there is no reason to assume this happened very quickly. He may have already had his wife before he left. He may have met her in Nod, but she may have been one of the sons and daughters of, one of the daughters of Adam and Eve, or one of the daughters of the daughters, or sons of Adam and Eve. This incident may have happened before Seth was born or after it. We just don't know. There is literally no reason at all to believe that there was a race of people living in Nod that had not come from Adam and Eve. People seem to equate this all happening in a very short period of time, when in reality, the time between just Adam and Seth is longer than anyone alive today will live. A whole modern lifetime and more. And the time until Adam died is nearly 1,000 years. That's a whole century. It's very unlikely that Cain left on a Monday and was having a child by the Wednesday. This story actually encompasses a really long period of time. The Bible very clearly tells us that there were, in fact, other children. There is no biblical reason to suppose a pre-Adamite race, or indeed the need for one. There was ample time for a whole race of people to have come from Adam and Eve, just as the Bible depicts. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you on another video. Shalom.